And then it does that thing where it says recording in progress. But then I break the fourth wall by like acknowledging it. And then, oh no, people are like, wait a minute, they're not ready. But this is another episode of Movies in Minutes. And I've got my friend and, very modestly won't admit, pro game player, Chris Dechene on. Chris, the first thing that I always ask people when I have them on is what type of movies do you like personally before we get into the ones that we're talking about for the week?
Never really given that much thought into it. I've never really like had a specific genre of movies that I like
I mean, I
love.
know I know I've seen lots of different movies with you,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean those encompass your favorites.
Yes. True. I
Cool.
really like comedies and
Mhm.
animation, and of
Mhm.
course, like superhero movies and stuff like that. But
This is fair. I mean, comedies not so much, but I've seen a fair amount of anime and or superhero movies with you.
mhm.
Um, are there any in any of those genres, considering they're all ones that you like, that like stand out? You're like, I could watch this 100 times and then still be ready for more.
When I was very little, and now it's definitely Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. That's always gonna be one of my favorites.
That's fair. That's for me also. I could watch 100 times. Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy. It's kind of just chef's kiss.
Exactly.
And any all right, so that's animation. Any
There's a
comp?
second one for animation
Oh, okay.
specifically. Well, because there's like animation for US and there's like Japan animation to
Anime.
anime, and
Hmm.
then there's like 3D animation and stuff like that. So definitely one of my favorite movies is Perfect Blue. Have you heard of that?
I have heard of it and I have not watched it. I picked it up on Blu-ray too, like for the first time maybe 6 months ago. I think it just had come out on Blu-ray.
It was hard to find
Hmm.
because like there was an issue with the rights for the US
Hmm.
as opposed to in Japan where it was owned by different people. But Perfect Blue is a suspense. It's a
Hmm.
psychological thriller by one of my
Hmm.
favorite directors, Satoshi Kon, who
Okay.
unfortunately passed away like 4 or 5 years ago. He had an illness, but he made
Okay.
like Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress,
Oh, Millennium Actress, I
yeah,
remember, we saw it and that I enjoyed.
Tokyo Godfathers. He did all those. Perfect Blue is
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
like one of my favorites.
I'm not even gonna be shocked to say this. I think the release for that when I picked it up not long ago was a G Kids, like even
Yeah,
though I wouldn't call it a kids movie,
no,
but yeah. I will
they got the right
I'll have to
songs
double
still.
check that. All right, all right. So that's on my homework to do list for movies to watch because I own it and haven't watched it. So what the hell is my problem?
Exactly.
Um, so I gave you three movies this week because I often give my guests, and sometimes they kind of clump together in similarity. I don't think I could have given you three more different movies than I gave you. Um, let's start with the first one.
Mhm.
Do you recall the first trailer I gave you for today?
I can't remember the name, but it was definitely like a B movie about vampires, which I
Yep.
thought was
So
actually kind of interesting.
okay, so that one was called BloodFly.
Yes.
So from the trailer, you got vampires. Anything else? Any conclusions or plot points that you gleaned from watching that?
Kind of, there's a lot to take in. There wasn't really much that I was getting from that. I
Yeah.
mean, the name kind of suggests that it's like, I don't really know. Like,
Mhm.
I'm trying
I
to,
mean,
I'm
it's
trying
okay.
to like, trying to think because I only got to
This
see it once and then I had to run out. So
Right. No right or
I,
wrong answers here, especially like when you're drawing conclusions, you know what I mean, on something that you haven't seen. One of the things I try to remind people to that I suggest this show for
yeah.
is that trailers can kind of go one of two ways. They either give you too much or they give you too little. There's
Oh, yeah.
very rarely you get a trailer where it like hits it on the head. And I would all agree with you that Bloodfly didn't give you as much as you needed, but you got beef horror from it, you got vampires from it.
Mhm.
Anything else like that jumps out at you just thinking about what you saw?
Um, Very extremely low budget. Like, this definitely feels like somebody's like, they just got out of film college and this is their first movie that they're making, which isn't a bad thing. You got to start somewhere.
Very true.
A buddy of mine actually graduated from um He's got a film education from Syracuse.
Mhm. So you kind of hit this one on the head. This is an indie. It actually was filmed locally. It was filmed in Ithaca. Yeah, and I went and saw it at its premiere in Ithaca. And it's tough because a lot of times with these things, the idea is for me to suggest it to people, and I've actually reached out to them because I want to know, if anybody gets the inclination to watch it, where they can go. And I think they said that it's going to be like hitting, streaming stuff soon. It is 100% B. I think B is generous. It is like Z-list horror. It is very low budget. The acting is very like, very like robotic. They feel like,
very like just reading their lines.
100%, 100%, or like saying things that people don't actually say, or like things that you think people would say when you're in a movie.
Yeah, none of it feels natural. It feels very much like we're just reading off the script that some dude wrote in his basement in like a day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he put more time into it than that. I think they actually started filming pre-COVID, and who knows if they hadn't had to like stop, if it would have changed their outcome. But yeah, it's kind of all over the place. It's best description I can give is that there is a guy whose daughter was dying, and we don't quite figure out the connective tissue here, but she goes from like dying to being a vampire, and she's kind of locked in a like a drum essentially. And these kids go to have a party in a warehouse, and then she gets let out and starts killing people.
Interesting.
And yeah, and people are trying to get drunk and high and the typical, and yeah, it just kind of is all over the place. But the weirdest part, you ever watch a B horror movie and you're like, this is so bad it's kind of funny?
Yeah, it's one of those.
It's kind of one of those. And I don't know if the director would appreciate that characterization or not. If you watch this, I do apologize, but that's just how it comes off, But yeah, so BloodFly, shot in Ithaca, local actors. I'm like you said, you got to start somewhere, and I got nothing but respect for the craft.
Oh yeah.
So don't quit making movies, BloodFly folks. Try and keep going.
Exactly. And that goes to like anybody else. Like,
yeah,
your first projects are always gonna be something like this.
Yeah,
I really hope that like the greats, you're not gonna hit a home run your first try. Maybe not even your second or third or fourth try. I'm pretty sure Christopher Nolan, when he started making movies, he wasn't making Inception, like out of whatever. I remember an interview. Yeah, you're not making those.
No. I hope that for the rest of the world's sake, this gets picked up by like Shudder or something, because I mean, I've seen some stuff like that on Shudder too, and for $5 a month, unlimited use of like horror movies like this, totally worth it. So that was our first one. The second one I sent you was also kind of a little obscure, a little out there, but I would say more geared towards history buffs or fans of history. Do you remember what the second trailer I gave you was?
I don't remember the name of it, but it was a play based on a very famous person dealing with the Holocaust, a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. That's definitely Holocaust. Definitely played into it. So the movie was called The Hiding Place, and it kind of is. I mean, I'm sure there was a million stories, regarding people helping, those trying to evade Nazi capture. But The Hiding Place was specifically about a clockmaker, or a watchmaker and his family in Holland, and the sort of operation that they stumble into helping, kind of be like a stop on along the way for like the Underground Railroad for Jewish people to get out of the city once the Nazis occupy Holland. What did that trailer do for you? Any thoughts, feelings, any particular things that jumped out?
I thought it was very interesting that it was like, remember how we saw the Spirited Away last month?
There you go. Mm-hmm.
And it was like another play that was filmed for cinemas, which I really liked. And I really like that because like when you're watching a play, everything's right there. But
Mhm.
having film for cinema can kind of add on to it because it can have different camera angles and
Mhm.
add more into experiencing the play than just being there watching it can do.
Totally. And I'm actually kind of glad that you're the person that I'm talking to this about, because of the fact that we saw Spirited Away
Mm.
as a stage play, but they like adapted it for film for us in the US.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody else has gotten a chance to see that, but that was wonderful. Um Weirdly though, I don't think that this movie slash play was better than that. But I think the way that, after having seen that and then watched this, I think the way they shot it to be used as a film was a little bit better than Spirited Away.
Mhm.
Only for the fact that when we saw that, right, like it was very wide, like very wide, very far back. So you
Yeah.
very much felt like you were in the audience, like when with somebody camcordering the play.
Yes.
Not bad, but just it's a particular film choice. This
Yes.
one was a lot tighter. Like, there were a lot of shots where it felt like you were, it would have been like in a movie where
Yeah.
somebody's like over
Mhm.
somebody else's shoulder, and it's like, oh my God, if I didn't know I was watching a play being filmed, I wouldn't know.
No, exactly.
Um,
That's kind of how it felt when I was watching the trailer too. It was definitely this is not the approach that they were going. They were trying to make it more dynamic.
mhm. um, any, I don't want to feed you too much on this one, but and maybe the trailer did a really good job of avoiding this, but there's very specific overt religious overtones in this, and I don't know if it comes across in the trailer, but the production, the playhouse that does this and I'm gonna forget its name. It's like Rabbit Playhouse or Bunny Playhouse or something, and they apparently are very Christian, which nothing against, being Christian.
Hmm.
But when you're actually watching the movie slash play, it comes up a lot.
Oh,
Like,
does it?
it's a little heavy handed.
Oh,
And as I watched it, I caught myself a couple of times, like thinking to myself, okay, there are parts of this that could serve the story, like, hey, the family's tradition is to read grace before dinner.
okay.
Okay,
Yep,
that
that
makes
makes
sense to me.
sense.
Totally makes sense. But then there's other parts where, like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen any other depiction of Nazis where they went out of their way to belittle Christians, call the Bible like fairy tales, this or that.
Right.
And maybe that would have happened if they ran into somebody that was like that, but it just felt very like, we want you to know that we are Christian. We want the audience to know that even though this is a persecution of Jewish people, we Christians were being persecuted too, because the family that took people in this film were Christian.
Okay.
So, and I thought to myself, like, I don't really think this is a contest. This is you guys are helping another group of people. It's not
Yes.
about we're all getting hurt. So, but
No, that's definitely like muddying the tone and what the film is supposed to do.
yeah,
That's really like heavy handed. I hate it when people do
and
that.
it makes it hard for me to recommend it. But at the same time, I I prefer to step back and I say to myself, there were a lot of good things about this,
Hmm.
and maybe this is me being biased, and I would
Yes.
rather people go watch it and decide for themselves. Um, Before we go on to the last one, I usually ask this right after each one, but I didn't ask you on the
Yeah.
first one. Just just for giggles, do
Okay.
you think that you would watch either BloodFly or The Hiding Place? Truthfully.
Probably not. I'm not much into B horror flicks, but I think
That's
it's
fair.
something I might be able to recommend my dad because he's always watching
Ooh,
through like B horror stuff on like Amazon Prime and all
cool.
that. So
All
maybe
right.
that's something I can have him look into. The second
Okay.
one, I'm really not sure.
Mhm.
I am because I remember I watched Schindler's List in high
Mm,
school
cool.
once, and
Yeah.
that was a really good movie, but that was also a very heavy movie. This, because of
Yeah.
what you told me, I don't know if I'd be interested in it. I
Mhm.
have nothing against different religions, Christianity, and
Yeah,
all that stuff
same.
like that.
Mhm.
But the problem is, from what you told me, they're ham fisting their material into something that's totally
Yeah. It, it
inappropriate and
it
irrelevant
definitely
to it.
it definitely feels that way. But again, I I I don't want to come off like an axe to grind kind of guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I just
Me
picked up.
neither. But it's just
Yeah.
like there's a time and a place for everything. They definitely, like you said, the families like they're saying grace before dinner, stuff like that. You can
Sure.
have that message. You can have that.
Mhm.
That's totally fine and probably what would happen. But
Mhm.
then you have like the Nazis going, like the Nazis are obviously targeting these specific people, and then you start making it about yourselves.
Right. Right. So that's fair. That's fair. And I appreciate the honest opinion on this. The last one is definitely something more mainstream.
Yes.
And it's not the first time they've done one of these, but it's definitely it might have been time for another shake at these. This is what was that last trailer I gave you?
The new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant
Mutant,
Mayhem, I think it was.
Mutant Mayhem. Yep. So, um, what did you get from that? I mean, and I'm sure you've got some previous knowledge about the turtles. Just it's most people do. They're a pop culture icon. So
Yeah.
I think it'd be very hard for anybody to walk into a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and not know something.
Yeah.
But what did you get from that trailer?
Just going by the trailer itself, I really love I love the animated cell shading and the style that they're going for. Definitely, like I didn't know much about the film itself. I would consider myself a casual Turtles fan. I liked them
Sure.
when I was very little, but
Yeah.
just as I grew up, I kind of like faded away from it because I was able to get the impression that it felt really like, how do I say, I'm trying to find the right word for it, but like it was definitely like pushed as a product.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, like,
Because I remembered I learned about the original series and the Kevin Eastman comics, and I was a parody of comics at the time, parody
Yeah.
of Daredevil and all that. So like seeing it like how it was like when I was starting to grow up and seeing like turtles everywhere, just turtles, late 90s, early 2000s. And I
Yeah.
kind of just grown and I got sick of it. But like as time went on, I got more back into it. And like I said, I consider myself a casual fan. I actually liked the mid 2000s animated movie that they did, the 3D one. Even though it's kind of like the plot's kind of all over the place, but like I actually saw a YouTube video today on ironically about it. And it's just like, oh, that actually wasn't that bad, even though the plot was all over the place.
I don't think I even knew that there was a mid 2000s animated one. That's another thing I gotta add to my homework list.
It's like a 3D movie. It's actually not bad.
Because
But like with this,
yeah,
with this movie, it feels like for the first time the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are actually teenagers.
yes, and I'm glad that you picked up on that. So there have been a lot of iterations of the Turtles, clearly including ones I've not even heard of.
Yeah.
I mean, there were like the 80s, 90s movies. There was the like later, like maybe the early 2010s, late 2020s slash 2010s, like the ones that had like Stephen Amell,
The Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, the Michael Bay ones.
I actually haven't seen those.
They've even done over the last handful of years, there was a cartoon on Nickelodeon.
Yes.
And this one actually comes from Nickelodeon technically, but it's not connected.
They bought the rights.
Yeah.
They own the rights.
But somewhere down the line they said, we want to do Turtles, but whatever we're doing on the small screen is just not quite cutting it. And they got Seth Rogen, who, for all his silliness, does have a great mind, especially when it comes to comic stuff. He's a fan. So I'm sure he's got some sort of love for the Turtles, so much so that he wrote himself into the movie, not as himself, but he plays Bebop.
Yeah.
And they got John Cena to play Rocksteady. But back to the point that you made, that every iteration of Turtles so far has somehow had a problem touching on the fact that they are in fact teenagers. It's literally in their name. But this one does it. This one does it right. Not only does it depict them as teenagers, it's got teenage actors playing them all, and I think maybe minus one of them, they're all essentially unknowns. And I think that's perfect for this movie, because if you intend to do more, you've got them at a young age, but also it's animated, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, we don't see what the kids look like. So
and if you wanted to, they can grow up.
They can, yeah. I mean, but you're acknowledging that they're younger and they have a ways to go, rather than just like, hey, we're called the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but nothing we do pertains to this epitaph.
Yeah, they may act like teenagers, but they're like not teenagers. They're not.
Right.
They're more like grown adults who just act young,
Yeah.
but they're not like actual kids. They're not kids. Whereas in this, they're legitimately kids. They look like and they act like and they feel
they're
like
all 15 in this. Like
they look like they could exist at my local high school.
Which actually ends up happening at some point in the movie, but you got to go watch it before, for so I don't give you the details on that.
Yeah,
but,
I kind of got the feeling of that from the trailer.
Yeah. Okay. The cast surrounding them though is pretty good. We got Jackie Chan to play Splinter, Superfly, who I'll be honest with you, I didn't think could carry the movie as a villain. Spoiler alert a little bit here. I mean, Superfly is the main villain of this movie, so any other villains you may or may not associate with the Turtles are not the villains of this film. Yeah. But Superfly is played by Ice Cube, who
really?
He's got, when you let that guy like loose and let him like grab the mic, basically, he's yeah. And he's great. He plays a great Superfly, and I think there was a cute little movie, like something about like not going with the same villains that they always go with. Also, As far as the animation goes, I found it to be somewhere between like Spider-Verse, and just and almost more like a comic. Like when you watch Spider-Verse, you're like, oh wow, this looks a lot like a comic. This like ratcheted it up to another level. Mm-hmm. The cell shading that you were talking about, it's blends perfectly. And I actually have to admit, going into this, I was really afraid that I wasn't gonna like it. I didn't really particularly like how the turtles were designed. Like I liked the art design of the film, but I was like, the turtles are gonna suck. And as you watch it on the screen, moving like all seamlessly together, it was really good. And I'm happy to eat my words on this one. Is there any thoughts based on the trailer that you saw, like about what you think the plot is about? I mean, I know I mentioned who the villain is, but like any idea what the story actually entails other than turtles?
I think the trailer explained a bit too much. Because I think it did. But like it was enough for me to pick up on it where I felt it was a bit too much, because you kind of got the plot, because the plot is essentially like all the villains are there and the turtles gotta like band up and stop them, but you see that they're rejects. All the villains are doing their thing because they felt to be rejected from society. They're all monsters and creatures and stuff like that, and the whole point is they want the turtles to join them because they themselves are rejects, but they want different things.
In some ways, yeah. So yeah, I mean that is definitely a major aspect of the movie. There is a third party that also sort of like tries to intercede. And there's a little bit more there than that. I mean, they give you like the backstory as to why that they're the rejects and like how they were made and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they also have a very different take on April in this movie.
Yep.
I don't know if they actually ever say that her name is O'Neill. Now that I think about it, I think they just called her April. They may have been trying to like shy away from the O'Neill part. I'm not sure.
Oh, maybe. I can kind of guess. I make a couple guesses. I mean, like, I love April O'Neil, but like you can have different interpretations. Like that O'Neill does not fit in what the story they're trying to do, and
right. But so like, I mean, her whole jam is she's about the same age as them.
Yeah.
So she's at the same sort of stage of life that 15-year-olds would be at.
Exactly.
So for that reason, she's not the same April O'Neil that we've seen in other iterations, and I understand why.
Yeah.
And I was okay with that.
It doesn't need to be.
No, not at all. Especially, I mean, this movie's pretty concise. Like you could watch it as just its own thing. They do leave you some room for, if they get greenlit for a second one, which I don't see why they wouldn't. Well, where they'll go. Do you think, based on what you saw for that one, whether or not you'd go see that?
I probably would at some point. I don't really go to the movies very often.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like indecisive, or like I'm either outside of work and I want to relax, or I got other plans. That's just a me thing personally.
Mm-hmm.
Like I typically want to go to movies for like events, or if I make plans ahead of time. Like it's really hard for me to spontaneously just go to the movie theater.
Events, you don't say.
Yep, exactly. I guess if the theater was still in the mall,
Mm-hmm.
I would more feel like, hey, let's just randomly go see a movie, because it's kind of just there. And if we walk around and we're like, oh, there's a movie, let's go, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm. I feel that. I mean, if our movie, where our movie theater is, it's kind of uh, I think they had a nice idea in mind, like when they built that, but there's just not a whole lot in that little like shopping area to entice people to be walking around there. I mean, it's pretty much dinner and a movie, or you're going out of your way to go there for a movie.
That's kind
But
of the
not
thing. Yeah, it's like
not
10,
really any
it's
other reason.
not even 10 minutes away. It's not the issue where it's located.
Oh yeah, you're pretty close to it.
Yeah, in a distance wise, like distance has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that it's kind of just isolated.
Kind of. Yeah, I feel you.
Like I feel like movies should be a very like social thing. And I actually learned what happened to the theater in the mall.
Oh, Hoyt?
Yes. Because Hoyt's went bankrupt around that time.
Mhm.
But originally they were going to expand and make a second level of the theater.
Ooh.
But of course, like I said, everything got shut down because Hoyt went bankrupt. And that was the end of that.
The smart thing for somebody to do would have been for one of the bigger chains to like scoop it up like when it was going bankrupt, because they probably would have gotten it for cheap and it would have already had all the infrastructure. And then if they wanted, they could have updated it or done it over time.
Which really surprises me that Marquee Cinema didn't do that themselves. But my guess is Pyramid won too much.
We could have had an AMC or a Regal, because I mean Pyramid and Regal go hand in hand. Like, they're in Destiny, they're in Crossgates, Ithaca.
Mm.
But nope, Sandstown was just not big enough for him.
Nope.
It is built on a swamp.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
Maybe that scares him. Swamp thing will pop up and get him.
Yeah. I mean, it's been there for a long time. I can see it being there for another 50, 100 years. As long as, they keep pumping money into it anyway.
This is true. So, as far as rankings go for these this week, BloodFly, I think a 2 would be generous out of 5 on this one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I got from the trailer. Reaction.
The Hiding Place, I would give like a 3, because everything about it was good until you get to the other stuff. And Turtles is a knock 'em out of the park. It's a 5. All day.
Oh, really?
So I don't think anybody who watches that will regret watching it. I think it's an enjoyable film. So if I had to recommend any of them above all else, I'd say Turtles. But ultimately, we give the info and we let people run with it, right?
Exactly.
So, Chris, thank you for being my guest this week. It's been fun. I've always enjoyed talking to you. And this has been Movies in Minutes, guys. Catch us on the next one.
All right, thanks for having me.
Of course. And stop recording.